Teddy, I was going to just ask,
Yeah, go ahead.
is the intent to put the CTC findings report in as a resource or a source, citing the findings that are displayed on page 9 in particular?
Yeah, the findings are there. Is there a way to potentially put a link in here that then we can link it on this to the site, right? Of the report. Okay, yeah, we will do that. Good add. Okay, doesn't sound like there's much else, so let's go ahead and move on to the next section. So that would be the affordability and individual equity section. So that's on page 10 and 11. So again, we'll give about 5 to 7 minutes to review, and then I'll pick back up again. If the only possible way that they can reduce cost of just in federal buildings. Because she was like, well, you know, if they don't get rid of them, they can fight them back. You know. And it kind of sucks for hiring anybody because, like, yeah, you've read it. And I can. sounds like most people have gone through the section. So I'll open it up for questions, comments, concerns, or changes that we may want to make to this section. Mark, you have a comment.
This is Gail Hedstrom, and I was just going to make a mention that I did send some written edits to Aini and Anna that I would suggest just for clarity and conciseness. I can read those out loud, or if you'd like, or they do have them in print. It doesn't really change the context, but I just think it's a little cleaner language and shortens it up a bit.
Okay, Gail, and which section is that for?
So, starting with the digital literacy, I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead and read it out loud.
Sure. So I would get rid of that first short couple of sentences and just change that to a standard definition of digital literacy should be established and used consistently across organizations and agencies. A standard definition would provide clarity and allow for measurable outcomes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. And then the next section, I would just shorten digital literacy are skills that allow individuals to access, navigate, organize, and utilize information from digital technology resources. And I would scratch the rest of that because I think it's just too specific.
Okay. Questions from anyone? Okay, go ahead, Gail.
Okay, and then from where it starts, that there are concerns all the way down to APP website or app. I would change it to increase access to digital skills, learning opportunities, an online database of resources searchable by zip code along with printed lists of learning opportunities should be created and distributed to communities. There is a need for funding to provide access to digital navigators for anchor institutions, funding for a defined role, such as an employer contractor who is responsible for teaching and or connecting people to digital literacy resources. So it's basically really the same language, just edited a bit.
Okay.
And then down to where it says barriers to improving digital literacy include, I have just changed that to lack of access to the internet due to income insecurity or internet availability, lack of technology such as computers or tablets, lack of transportation to locations where devices and the internet are available, lack of childcare, lack of trust in government agencies, illiteracy and language barriers.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought you did a wonderful job, and thank you so much.
Well, we only had one chance to really work together, so we were hoping to get together again, but yeah, just kind of editing a little bit of what we worked on.
Okay. How do you have the changes that Gail mentioned?
I need to confirm that it gets updated into the document correctly, but I did get them emailed.
Okay. Okay. Well, we can confirm that at the next time we break up for a meeting, so that way we can update that accordingly.
And then also under, I did change the language under prolific opportunities, but I think if Anna has that and if Annie's okay with it, I think we could just change that. It's just some minor wording changes. You're okay with that? Same intent.
Yeah, I do have a question. And for the group on page 10, under affordability, the second paragraph, you talk about the E-rate program. And I'm just curious so it says Minnesota's working to address affordability for schools by exploring how E-rate discounts can align with free and reduced lunch programs to support connectivity in educational settings. That is actually how the program works. What was the group trying to say there, I guess, is my...
Well, I have a question about that. Like, one, is paperwork still being filled out if free and reduced lunches, I mean, lunch is free for everyone. So is that paperwork still being filled out and gathered by school districts? And then also, if E-rates are, in question going forward, do we have a contingency plan for dealing with potential lack of funding?
I suspected those were a couple of the concerns, and it would be good if it expressed that more so, because what you say there is how the program works. But you're right, there's an issue with the that the state has to grapple with, which in education we call the compensatory revenue, how compensatory revenue is calculated, which is free and reduced lunch, right? So that's definitely an issue with E-rate and for schools. And right now it's before the Supreme Court. The funding mechanism for E-rate is in front of the Supreme Court right now. Definitely an issue, but we really are waiting for the Supreme Court to rule to know what we'll have. There's really not anything we can do about that. That's a federal situation, but there's advocacy that could happen if the Supreme Court rules in a negative way to the program. So I think the comment here is just saying that there's a concern, right? So how do we express there's a concern for those things? Yeah, I can maybe think of something.
I was just going to add, on school board is we still have folks fill out the free and reduced form, but there isn't as much of an incentive for people to fill it out. So there is a gap there. I mean, schools still encourage it, but it's always been one of those things that it's hard to capture people to fill out that form. And we try really hard to make sure that people know, yes, it's not for free and reduced lunch, but it does help increase the cost for textbooks and other components that we really do need as a district. All of our districts need that. But I think it's a really valid point that particular system is not working the way that it should at this point.
No, definitely a valid point. And they've tried to substitute direct certification and some other things to account for it, but there's still a gap. Yeah, absolutely there is.
I'm just going to put a quick link into the chat from USAC about alternate ways of identifying the percentage of a discount school or library to be eligible for, just for reference. Yeah, I just want to make sure that that's known and readable.
Okay. So I think the sentence is not incorrect, just that it just needs to have maybe at the end, but there's still concerns or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the sentence describes how it works. But the problem is there's concerns about, is it working that way in Minnesota and everywhere else? But yeah. Okay.
I have the ability to work on that a little bit this afternoon if that would be helpful, and I could send something out.
Yeah, so we had a comment here, and then we just say we'll get some wording back to just express the concern. Yeah. I don't think materially changes anything here, but
no, it just highlights more about what the issue, deeper about what the issue is.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Other questions, comments?
Hi, Teddy. Again, Brianna. I do have a question. Under the recommendations for digital literacy, page 12, I am interested in just clarifying, it is not our intent to put a definition forward that agencies should be using? Or is the recommendation that we as a state need to adopt a universal definition so that all agencies can utilize? Just curious kind of on thought process there.
I think our thought process, and I don't just speak for myself, but was that there should be a universal definition so that if applying for grants and those kinds of questions are asked, or if they want a measurable outcome, we have some way to measure that. And we know that there's several definitions, some used by the state, some used by state schools, some by employment agencies. It would be nice if we had some consistency.
So if I could just extend maybe a recommendation on rewording that particular recommendation, just so that it is more clear that the recommendation is to produce a universal definition, just as you described, Gail.
Okay, very good. Yep.
Thank you, Brianna. Well. Other questions, comments?
Is the universal definition something that you would be open to external feedback or collaboration on?
Yes, and I don't think we're looking at coming up with the definition. We're just suggesting that there is one, that there should be one. We're not, but please feel free to send any comments, but I don't think it was our intent to be to define it at this time. But
No, yeah, we didn't want to define it per se, but there was like an example in case they were trying to drill down on some commonly accepted, verbiage in the industry. And that was through the North Star. But I mean, again, I guess they can do their own research, but
Right, so we have some updates to make, but I don't hear any material changes, more some clarification and some edits on language. So with that, moving on, let's go to the economic opportunity and workforce development section. That starts on page 13, then it goes through page 17. So give now 7 or 8 minutes for everybody to review this. Once you're ready, make sure it sounds right, right? Okay. Some point. Okay, that's what I was sure. Exactly. actually would have been like. Or kind of done with it. Questions, comments on this section?
I have one question. Is there any studies that are more current than the one done in 2017?
That's part of the problem. No, there's not a lot of. We looked for more recent data. There's a little bit that there is some in there, but not in terms of Minnesota. No.
Thank you.
This is Brianna again. On page 15, there's a comment about suggesting different, clarification around CWA and CTC. That was my recommendation. I was just trying to give context to potential readers. And if there's a way just to provide a short description, which I think actually it's been updated since I had made that suggestion. So perhaps if nothing else, maybe we could add a source so that if there is somebody unfamiliar with that particular apprenticeship, that they could review it. The fact that it's called out in particular on this report, I think, is impactful. So maybe just to give our potential readers more understanding behind the program and opportunity just to learn more, I guess is where my thought process was.
Got it. Okay. I think we have the source. We just need to put it in the document. So
yeah, there's
maybe spell out Communications Workers of America and Cooperative Telecom to make it a little easier to digest. Okay. That what you're gonna get at more than anything. She's asking on. I think there's a source. I like the idea of spelling it out. We could definitely do that. And then there is a source actually in the comments, so we can, but it's not in the document. So put it as a source.
And maybe I should have asked this question at the beginning. I mean, who is our typical reader of this particular report? I recognize it's a public-facing document, and the aim is hopefully for our legislators, those in position of which to make decisions. But are there other groups of people that maybe we should have been mindful as we were developing this?
I mean, for our main audience is the governor's office and the legislators, right? Particularly the ones that have a keen interest in broadband. But to your point, the report is publicly available, so I mean, anybody can have access to it. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Do the section before we kind of wrap up for the last kind of piece of it. It's going to be around the mapping and funding. So again, I'll give it 5 minutes or so for everybody to review, and then we'll come back with any questions or concerns.
Yes. Actually, no, I would take cheap.
We don't know exactly how much private match will be required to get the $50 out, correct? Yeah, is there a option? All the other, they call it how much private investment is put into it. You should know what have your
Oh, gosh.
all the other ones call it.
We don't know Pete yet, though.
Okay, we don't even have a moderate rate. We have and it's gonna go
I mean,
up
we know that
75.
Pete 75% of the house. So,
And their minimum. Can we call that out just to highlight how much okay, we'll see that dollar amount.
private investment willing to see. Yeah.
I think they'll link to contributions. Our guys called out explicitly. I don't know if that was an unreasonable thing. If you guys don't have that number availability. At a minimum, at least.
Yeah.
Good.
Nothing like lower.
Go ahead.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, they have a website for that issue. So.
Sounds like people are wrapping up on it. Any questions, comments, concerns on mapping policy and funding section? Seconds. Make sure you can get off mute if you need to. Yeah.
On the page you're on, the only thing I brought up was border to border, the private investment is highlighted. The line extension, the private investment is highlighted. The BEAD funding, it's not a specific dollar value, but to Bree's point, it'll at least consist of 75% of the overall cost. Is there a rationale of highlighting the private investment that it will take to get this done, just so legislators and governors office see how much value the Fed and the municipalities and the private investment will be? Worded however, and I can craft.
So it's a suggestion not to highlight that.
Yeah, just add similar to the other two sections about how much private investment it took to match that. Yeah, it's up to you. It would be anticipated, right?
Yeah,
Anticipated at least, yada yada. If that makes sense.
Anybody opposed to that?
No?
Okay. Next city, I'm just taking time, so that way we all together. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, with that in mind, so let's turn to the last two pieces, which is the letter and the executive summary. More focused on the executive summary. The letter is just kind of a recap of the whole thing. So I would rather you kind of focus on the executive summary because that's what really, at the end of the day, kind of surfaces up to the top. Also in this section, we tried to not have too much overlap because we did have some overlaps in some areas, but just kind of be concise. So if you see any issues, let me know. But let's give it 5 more minutes to review this, and then we'll open it up for questions. finished reading that piece of it. Open it up for questions, comments. Questions or comments? Okay, good. Right. Okay, if there's no comments or questions on this, pretty much we have the document now, kind of hopefully I've had a chance to review it, maybe you've reviewed it beforehand. I think I haven't heard of any material changes to the document itself. Things I've written down, we have put a link to the CPC presentation, which was mentioned in one of the initial section. The intro section, there's a clarification on language and simplification and affordability and digital equity, which I think Gail and Eni have already provided to that, and a clarification on one of the recommendations there, but it wasn't substantially changing anything. We want to spell out CWA, CTC piece of it, or the CWA part of it, and add the link to the source, which we already had. And then we wanted to add in one of the recommendations, not only BEAD, but also the private amount of investment that goes into it, and kind of add that highlighted as well in the landing policy and funding. So those were the changes compared to the initial document. So obviously we'll finish up making sure all the appendix tie out, sources are where they need to be, the reference of the pages are in the right place. But with that, sounds like we have alignment to move forward to a vote. But before we get to that, I will open it up for any last minute comments or questions or concerns before we go to a vote. Okay, not hearing anything. So for the vote, the best way, Anna, is just to do the roll call again. And then you can say approved or not approved, or abstain if you'd like to abstain from the vote as well. And then I know we have some folks that may not be with us today. I will follow up to see if we can get direction one way or the other, or if we don't, we can just leave it blank. So, but that will be what goes on page 6. It'll be filled in to be able to be included as part of the report as well. So with that, and I'll let you do the roll call.
Okay, first up, Eni Augustine.
Approve.
Bruce Crane.
Approve.
Crane. Steve Fensky, are you back online?
Maybe.
Gail, are you able to hear us?
Yes, approve.
Thanks. Brian Hood.
Approved.
Brian. Adam Hutchins.
Approved.
Adam. Mark Johnson.
Approved.
Johnson. Daniel Lightfoot.
Approved.
Lightfoot. Paul McDonald was absent earlier. Paul, are you back on? Lumpy.
Approved.
Stahlberger was absent earlier. Phil, are you back on? And John Tweese was also absent earlier. John, are you online by chance? David Wolf.
I approve. I approve.
Okay, that was approved from John and approved from David. And Melissa Wolf. Abstain.
Okay, so we'll follow up with, thank you very for that. We'll follow up with Steve, Phil, and Paul, see where we go with that. So the next piece will be, obviously, we'll just clean up the report, make it available. Once we have sort of the cleanest version possible, we'll probably send it out to everybody into PDF format. And then from that, we'll send it to the appropriate, the governor, the office of the governor, and then the legislators and all that will be done in passed. We do have a meeting in January that we were able to line up, at least with Senator Putnam, I think, right, Bree? And then I don't know, we'll try to get some other representatives in there as
And
well.
Anderson is confirmed, I think, but we're waiting. We didn't hear from Hanson, but
Okay.
we're certainly invited.
So one of the things in that meeting is to actually go over the recommendations that are put forward, so we can have a discussion on the recommendations themselves and any details required for that. So this document will be super important for it. In the meantime, we're also trying to potentially create a PowerPoint that will simplify the report itself, right? So essentially, we would have what's in the executive summary with some of the challenges, some of the background, the recommendations, and then maybe some appendix with some of the maps and things like that. That comes in handy. Done that before. We did the report this time, which has a little more detail, which I thought was a good update. But having sort of that easier to consume PowerPoint does help as well. So, but that again will not materially change anything here. If anything, it'll just be a very summary of this. So we'll try to build that over the next month or so, just to make conversations easier as we go forward. In case we get asked to present or testify, we can always use that material as well. So that'll be provided sometime between now and the meeting in January. And again, if you have comments and concerns, etc., you can let me know, but just reply to me or just myself and Anna. Just because if we start replying to everybody, then we still have an open meeting, and then we have to organize it and get together and all those kind of fun things. So, which I don't think is where we want to be. Okay, so with that, any other open business we need to talk about at all today? Anyone? It's not related to the report? Yes, Brianna, you asked when is this meeting? I believe it's January 13th.
I'm gonna send out a calendar hold for the January meeting, and we have tentative dates for the rest of 2025. So calendar holds for those will go out as well. And we do have a location for the January meeting, so you'll get that a little later today.
So the January meeting, I'll be coming out today, right? You're just sending it out today, you said, Anna. So they'll be coming out as far as with that date as well as the location. And as I mentioned, we also do have tentative dates for next year. I get tentative because as we get into it, we'll see what works and what doesn't work. So you'll be seeing that coming your way. Okay. Other questions, comments? Thanks to staff for all the hard work. Yeah, great report. Thanks for all that. Exactly. Yeah, everybody that's working on this. I mean, obviously for everything you do for broadband deployment in the state of Minnesota, but also just even supporting us, getting the meetings, changing rooms at the last minute for audio. That's been great, and obviously great work on getting us to this spot with the report and pulling it all together. So thank you, Adam, for that reminder. Okay, if there's anything else, we'll close this meeting and wish everybody a happy holidays. Hopefully you get a chance to